Hello everyone, today is 5th of November, now it's 10:30 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be published on my Patreon and Boosty pages later on today, towards the evening time, with all the additional main news that Russian media will report about during their day. And if you are interested in more news from Russia, more commentary, and if you like my work and want to support, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. That truly will be great support. Links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And let's talk about news now. I'm gonna skip bottom up today to make sure that this update is relatively short. And first news that I want to share with you is coming from Kiev. According to Vzglyad newspaper's article, Zelensky's office is ready to negotiate with Moscow to hold fire on energy infrastructure of each other. So the head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andrei Yermak, said that Kiev is ready to consider an agreement with Russia to stop attacks on energy infrastructure if Qatar mediates. Ukraine is ready to discuss the possibility of concluding an agreement with Russia on stopping the strikes on energy facilities with the mediation of Qatar or another country. Head of the office of the president of Ukraine, Andrei Yermak, said that Kiev will be open to such an agreement. Okay, Kiev regime is desperate. Of course, they are struggling big time on the line of contact, or when it comes to energy sector. Just recently, one of the high-ranking officials in Kiev regime stated that significant, up to 90% of generation of electricity by thermal power plants are out of work, and of course, Kiev wants to achieve an agreement with the Russian side so that Russia will stop conducting long-range precise strikes on our military and logistics infrastructure of the Kiev regime. And of course, energy infrastructure is a part of logistics infrastructure and military infrastructure of the Kiev regime, because whatever is left from military-industrial complex on Kiev-controlled territory is using electricity to produce weapons, to conduct some maintenance work on weapon systems, damaged weapon systems, for example. So energy infrastructure is a legit target, no doubts about that. And even though theoretically I can see such a scenario in which Moscow, even without any agreements with the Kiev regime, may minimize strikes on energy infrastructure of the Kiev regime, at least during the winter time, possibly to just demonstrate goodwill, towards residents of Kiev-controlled territory, and to once again demonstrate that Russia is in conflict with their Western proxy regime in Kiev, not with their people. And strikes may be minimized for winter time and resumed in spring, but I cannot know for sure. But when it comes to agreement with Zelensky's regime, you tell me if Moscow can trust anyone from Kiev regime, or any agreement that might be reached with mediation of Qatar or Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, or any other country in this world. Kiev regime cannot be trusted in principle. So therefore, if Moscow will minimize their volume of strikes on energy infrastructure of Kiev regime on its own as a goodwill gesture, okay. If not, then and for that Russia don't need no agreements really. It just can't do it. But if operational situation on battlefield and needs of special military operation will demand those strikes to continue, then I guess that's what is going to happen. No agreement can be reached with Kiev regime, I'm sure about it, 110%, because it does not make no sense. And there are some experts, by the way, while commenting on this topic that is actively discussed in Western media, in media in the rest of the world about this, holding fire on energy infrastructure of each other. Well, according to some experts here in Russia, Moscow would not conduct no talks with any third party on this issue, at least before there presence of Kiev regime's forces and NATO mercenaries in the Kursk salient area. And for now, at least, we did not see withdrawal of these forces, invading forces from the Kursk region. Russian armed forces basically are decimating those troops and forcing back, but they are still there, even though this Kursk salient area is shrinking. Presence of the Kiev regime and NATO mercenaries are there, and until this is the case, why would Moscow negotiate anything with anyone, right? When it comes to a special military operation and strikes on energy infrastructure or anything else, right? Anyways, let's continue. Maybe as a confirmation of what I just said, we have this report from RIA Novosti that there was explosions in Kiev this morning. Mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, stated that her air defense was actively working in Obolon district of the Kiev. And I guess explosions occur exactly in this area. I would not be surprised at all if energy facilities were targeted. Some military industrial complex facilities and logistical infrastructure. During the day, probably we will learn some more about these strikes, and of course I will share additional information on my Telegram channel and in the next updates. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that newly appointed head of NATO, dear friends, Mark Rutte, former Prime Minister of Netherlands, starts spreading some, in my personal opinion, some fake news in open, by the way, without any shame. And he's saying now that Rheinmetall, this giant of German military industrial complex, is about to open its second plant in Kiev controlled territory to produce some weapons. And just recently, if you remember, I reported about statements from Rheinmetall itself, according to which your first plant is already operational in Kiev controlled territory. And I had some doubts about correctness of that report. And I definitely have doubts about statements of Mark Rutte about the second plant, because I find it really, really difficult to believe that Kiev regime and NATO were able, and Rheinmetall were able to build entire factories or plants with all the necessary logistical links to it, when dozens of trucks going in and out on daily basis, and to produce their weapons, store it, and do it in complete secrecy. I mean, it's just not possible. It's just not really possible. So I guess some sort of money laundering scheme is happening here, or something like that. Because I don't believe there is any Rheinmetall plant on Kiev controlled territory. I just don't believe in this. But anyways, dear friends, you share your opinion, what you think. Is it possible that one Rheinmetall plant is really operating now and another one is about to open? Why would Russian side allow that? Those plants will be destroyed while process of building, construction work is underway, right? But anyways, let's go through this news. So NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, speaking at the press conference with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, confirmed the appearance of the second Rheinmetall plant in Ukraine, which will soon begin operation. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, while on visit to Germany, confirmed the intention of the German company Rheinmetall to open a second plant in Ukraine. RIA Novosti reports he said that soon the second plant will be completed and will start working. Rheinmetall has just opened its first plant in Ukraine. The second one will be completed soon, Rutte said at the press conference with Olaf Scholz. It is expected that the second plant will become an important part of their infrastructure for the production of the weapons on the territory of Ukraine. Well, I don't believe any of it. I just don't believe in any of it. I just don't see how such operations can be conducted in complete secrecy on Q-controlled territory. So therefore, I mean, something else is happening here. These statements may be part of media op against Russia. Maybe they want to confuse Russian side, or maybe this is just some yet another money laundering scheme that Rheinmetall, German government, and the NATO leadership come up with. Because after all, modern Ukraine, is the biggest money laundering operation that humanity have ever seen, right? Tens of billions, hundreds of billions at this point of dollars and euros were processed through this money laundering scheme and enrich military industrial complex of the West and their so-called politicians that are lobbying this constant flow of money into this proxy war against Russia, right? I would not be surprised at all if these plants that are supposed to be built in Ukraine are, for these plants, the German government or EU, transfer to Rheinmetall some significant sums, hundreds of millions of euros, maybe billions of euros, and they are now, laundering this money. That's all. Because I don't believe there are any Rheinmetall plants in Q-controlled territory. Time will tell, by the way. If they are calling the plant some garage where one or two infantry white fighting vehicles can undergo some renovation or some work, then that's a whole different story. I mean, I call it garage, not the plant that really are capable of producing in mass weapon systems, right? But if they really are talking about plant, then this is money laundering scheme, some sort of. Anyways, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting. You tell me, dear friends, what kind of people, are these Rute, Scholz, Moltz, and the rest of them that are not ashamed to lie this open to public? And how can people believe in all of this without questioning it, without any critical questions? I don't know. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian president yesterday afternoon met with the foreign minister of North Korea, Choi Son-hee, and their sides discussed bilateral relationships between the two, and these relationships are on strategical level, of course, nowadays, not just in terms of politics or financial or economical ties, but also in terms of military. And when it comes to military, Western propaganda outlets, Western so-called politicians still are pushing this narrative of North Korean troops on front lines in zone of special military operation and in Kursk salient area. I believe US propaganda outlets, I cannot give you a name of that outlet. It was Axios or one of those, one of their outlets in US. Even were reporting that North Korean troops already participating in the battles, which is, total nonsense, by the way. Total nonsense. It's a fake news, obviously. I was very clear on this matter from very beginning. Russia does not need North Korean troops, no troops from any other country to deal with their terrorists, fascists, extremists of all sorts in zone of special military operation or in zone of counter-terrorist operation in the Kursk salient area. Meanwhile, of course, I can understand that as a result of agreements between Russia and North Korea, there can be North Korean troops on Russian territory that are undergoing some training, receiving additional information, additional knowledge about tactics and strategies in modern warfare, especially when it comes to high-intensity conflicts. And I can understand why South Korea is worried about this development, that North Korean troops are undergoing training and receiving latest knowledge on high-intensity battle, because they cannot have such experience. They cannot gain such experience. They cannot learn it because US militaries, for example, cannot provide such a training because US military itself last time was involved in high intensity battle during the Vietnam War. That's all, right? So right now, there are no militaries or officers in US Army, Navy or Air Force that has a real understanding what a modern high intensity conflict is. So obviously they cannot train or they cannot share their experience with their South Korean troops, experience that they themselves don't have, right? So that's what it is, dear friends. Meanwhile, I can see possibility, as I spoke about earlier on this topic, that maybe North Korean leadership asked Russia not just to train its troops, but also to allow them to participate in some battles, to get closer to line of contact for additional experience of this high intensity conflict. Because obviously training, even about modern tactics, is a training, but a real battle is a whole new level of experience, right? But I don't know. I find it difficult to believe that Moscow will agree on that. Theoretically, yes. I mean, if North Korean leadership was, too persuasive, if they were asking that, what, we just need this, help us with it, we need our troops to have battle experience, real battle experience, then maybe officers of North Korean troops will be, able to enter decision-making centers. Maybe they will get closer to line of contact, but yet again, to participate directly into battles, I don't think so. I mean, it's just too much of a headache for Moscow, and but when it comes to sharing experience, yes, North Korean troops will gain experience about modern warfare. Also, dear friends, TASS news agency is reporting that according to Israeli IDF, about 100 strikes were conducted during the previous 24 hours on targets in the Gaza Strip and Lebanon, officially on military targets, but in reality, unfortunately, we are seeing that quite often these strikes that IDF is conducting is razing entire apartment buildings, entire residential areas, entire villages. By the way, yesterday on my Telegram channel, I shared video when literally entire village was erased from the face of the earth. Entire village in just one explosion, right? There were multiple explosions, but in one operation. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian plane of Ministry of Emergency Situations delivered to Lebanon 19 tons of humanitarian aid, and of course Russia is among many other countries that is providing Lebanon with their humanitarian aid nowadays, and simultaneously, very same plane took 97 Russian citizens back to Russia from capital of Lebanon, Beirut. RT is reporting that Israel reveals a special operation in Syria. So the Israeli military has revealed that it carried out a ground raid in Syria to detain, as they call, terrorist operative linked to Iran. Sunday's announcement marks the first time since the escalation of the conflict in the Middle East last year that Israel has admitted its troops have operated on Syrian soil. And dear friends, this is, third country, isn't it? Israel is constantly targeting Syria with their airstrikes, artillery strikes, and so on. But when it comes to ground operations, Syria is the third country, third neighbor of Israel that is targeted now with the ground forces of this state also. Palestine, Lebanon, now Syria. Which is next? Jordan, Egypt? You tell me. unfortunately, the escalation is still not even on the horizon when it comes to Middle Eastern tragedy in the Middle East that is taking place right now. RT is reporting that Joe Rogan, by the way, biggest blogger, biggest podcaster in this world, endorses Trump. So, podcaster Joe Rogan has endorsed Donald Trump following an interview with one of the former US president's most influential supporters, Tesla CEO Elon Musk. The endorsement came on the eve of their November 5th election, pitting Trump against the Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. Rogan promoted his interview with the great and powerful Musk in a post on X, insisting that it will warrant for the self-described free speech absolutist with the I cannot read this but you can probably see there's some slang there. I don't know. Sometimes when I'm commenting something, if I go emotional, I'm beginning to use some French language. I don't even know why we call it French, by the way. But when I'm calm, I'm refusing to use any of such explicit language. Anyways, this is a big deal, by the way, I believe. This is a big deal because, well, Joe Rogan has a huge following. He is respected by millions, tens of millions of people, not just in the US, but worldwide. He is the biggest, isn't it, in this business? And this may play some very important role, this endorsement of the Joe Rogan, much bigger than all the celebrities' endorsements for Kamala Harris. I may be wrong, I don't know. As I said many times before, I'm not really that keen to learn about internal politics of US. It's none of my business after all, right? It's up to US citizens to deal with their own elites and their political system that they have. But yes, it is a big day for the US today, presidential elections, and big news is coming that Joe Rogan endorsed Trump. Many Western channels, many Western media projects in independent media sharing their predictions on these elections. Some say Kamala will win, some say Trump. I don't have prediction, by the way. I don't have a prediction because, in my personal opinion, outcome of these elections don't really depends on voters in US. It depends on decision-making process in deep state, intelligence community. It's up to Western ruling class, really, who will be put in the White House. I may be wrong. I mean, correct me, by the way, on that if I'm wrong. But I don't have trust in this system that Western ruling class have in US or all the other countries or majority of the countries of the collective West. I mean, how you can call elections something when there is let's say 2 parties or 3 or 5, who cares? When you have a number of, let's say, figures that are competing for certain positions, and all those figures are financed by same center of power. How is that elections when behind all of them stands one force? And no matter who you're gonna pick, this shadow center of their decision making will be the winner, right? Real winner. And this is the case because that's why you don't really see changes in US policies, no matter Democrats are in office or Republicans or whoever. The same can be said about any other country, by the way. Just recently, Labour Party became a ruling party in UK. I mean, did you really see any changes in policies of the UK. I mean, any changes. It's a uniparty stuff, by the way, in UK, in US, in just about everywhere, in collective West, right? You know, so that's why I don't have prediction, because I don't know who Western ruling class gonna put in the White House. I just don't know. Let's see, we will find out, isn't it? First, exit polls will be available. I mean, I don't know even if you can trust those exit polls that were very wrong first time Trump was elected, because those polls were predicting victory for Hillary, right? And Trump won. So I have some doubts about those exit polls also, but anyways, we will see those exit polls first in just a couple of hours time. So we'll find out. But this is big, by the way, when it comes to Trump's camp, of course, endorsement of Joe Rogan, who can bring many millions, potentially many millions of independent voices. Well, that's big. Also interesting news difference that TASS News Agency, according to TASS News Agency, Washington and their area, they are discussing agreement on security. Let's translate this also. This was initially reported on Axios. So the United States and Saudi Arabia are discussing the possibility of concluding security agreement that would not imply normalization of the kingdom's relations with Israel. This was reported by the portal Axios, citing sources. According to them, we are talking about a possibility of concluding a security agreement that would not imply a broader deal with Israel. At the same time, this would not be a full-fledged defensive pact between Washington and Riyadh, the possibility of signing which was considered before the escalation of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict on October 7 last year. Axios notes, according to this version, Riyadh's position on the conflict in Gaza Strip and Lebanon makes normalization of the relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia unrealistic in the near future for both countries. So, well, Riyadh is acting quite confusingly nowadays. I can understand that this royal family has hundreds of billions in assets in the Western financial and banking system. They invested heavily in the Western economy, and they may lose it all at any point. Washington will want it, right? Or Western ruling class. So there is a clear dependence of leadership of Saudi Arabia on the collective Western or Western ruling class, but simultaneously they somehow have to run the country, isn't it? And when it comes to country, I find it difficult to understand how anybody in Riyadh really are considering US to be guarantor of peace. After all, we are talking about Middle East, for God's sake. What peace? What security guarantees? If you are looking for a country that was destabilizing and destroying Middle East for decades and decades in a row, well, that country is US, right? And you expect some security and stability guarantees from Washington? You cannot be serious on that, right? But yet again, I mean, this dependence of Saudi elites on the Western financial and banking system makes them vulnerable, right? And that's why it is highly important BRICS to come up with this alternative financial and banking system, so that governments worldwide or elites worldwide will have alternative, and at least have opportunity to diversify their investments. They would not put everything they have in a Western financial and banking system. And they don't want to. I'm quite sure Saudi leadership, Saudi's elites would love to diversify their investments, but they don't know how. They dependent on Western financial and banking system. on SWIFT, by the way. They can put money in any bank in this world, for example, but if that bank or that account is blocked and SWIFT will not allow money to move around, then they are done, right? But if BRICS will come out with their alternative system to the SWIFT, alternative financial and banking system in general, that will change whole field, right? But I mean, I don't get it, man. Saudi Arabian leadership is seeking some security guarantees from US. Are you serious, man? Did you learn anything about at least past history? I mean, recent history. I mean, take a look at the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Anyways, for Saudi Arabia, best security guarantees are if they will join BRICS, and they didn't, by the way. They have a now status of observer or something, but they did not fully join the BRICS, even though they asked for it and they receive invitation. All right. So best security guarantees for them was if they will join the BRICS, if they will further improve relationships with their BRICS member states, including Iran, by the way. And then that's it, really. And I believe China, India, Russia may deploy on permanent basis some naval forces into Persian Gulf, into Gulf of Aden, Red Sea, just to make sure that no third parties will provoke any regional conflict there, right? So Saudi Arabia is looking in the wrong place for security guarantees, that's for sure. RIA Novosti is reporting that the Georgian opposition, so-called opposition, which is completely controlled by Western secret services, especially US secret services, and the State Department, is promising waves of protests all around Georgia, in Tbilisi, capital of the republic, and in other parts of the country. Yesterday there was a gathering, yet another one, right next to Georgia's parliament, and there was some threats, promises that they will, not recognize results of the recent parliamentary elections, but they will achieve victory and they will force ruling party to appoint new elections or to even resign. Some crazy statements, by the way, from so-called leaders of their opposition. And you might be surprised, but plenty of Westerners, by the way, plenty of citizens of the Western states are participating in these demonstrations. Even politicians, but also public figures. And I was a bit surprised to see Greta Thunberg, by the way, on these demonstrations in Tbilisi. I mean, what the hell, man? What she lost in Georgia, really? Especially on political rally, right? If it was about some, green stuff, preserve these flowers or that flowers or these butterflies or that butterflies, okay. I mean, I can see logic of her presence, but this is a clearly political process that is run from outside of Georgia, isn't it? To overrun legit government and then to sacrifice Georgia as Ukraine was sacrificed. And what Greta Thunberg lost there? And I don't know, man. Did she finish school? Because I believe she was like teenager, isn't it, when she became this public figure, and she was she was refusing to go to school or something. I don't really care that much. She is a grown up now, isn't it? I guess. But still, by the way, I wonder if she even finished school and if she can find out Georgia on the map. I doubt about that, but So yes, Western control, this so-called opposition is threatening to overrun their legit government. They are all about destabilization right now. And when it comes to foreign involvement, okay, Western public figures, they're not gonna take up arms and start shooting at the citizens of Georgia. But unfortunately, there was reports that Western Secret Services already deployed significant time ago into Georgia snipers and some other militaries that undergo training, and some other mercenaries basically that undergo training in Kyiv-controlled territory and even participated in hostilities there. And that's from where main danger comes from, because those cells of these mercenaries may escalate situation in a country at any point by conducting terrorist attacks, or by opening fire on civilians, or law enforcement officers and so on. And we know that something similar had happened, or did happen in 2014 in Kyiv, right? When snipers opened fire on law enforcement officers and their civilians, and then this casualties number, over 100 people were killed during that process. This was used as a justification to overthrow the government, right? And I guess Western Secret Services have a similar plan for Georgia. Hopefully local law enforcement agencies, security forces are ready for all possible provocations in order to deal with it. And hopefully society is united enough to withstand the pressure. RT is reporting. How long is this update, dear friends? It's already 36 minutes. Okay, dear friends, I have like 2 more news that I can share in the second update. So therefore, I will end with all the other main news that Russian media will report during the day. And to make sure that this video, at least under 40 minutes, I will end update now. Hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. This is the only way we can at least try to influence algorithm to reach wider audience. And if you like my work, if you want to see further development of this small media project, please consider to support. All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.